Will be my refuge, my haven in the storm. Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's overcome? Will you remember, bring me spirits of rosemary, be my sanctuary till I can carry on. This one knocked me to the ground, this one dropped me to my knees. I should have seen it come, but will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's overcome? Will you remember, bring me springs of rosemary, be my sanctuary till I can carry on. In a state of true believers, on streets full of us and them, it's gonna take some time to work and sink in. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's overcome? Will you remember, bring me spirits of rosemary, be my sanctuary till I can carry on. You can rest here in Round Chapel, or with a circle of friends, a quiet grove of trees, or between two bouquets. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's overcome? Will you remember, bring me spirits of rosemary, be my sanctuary till I can carry on.
The chalice has been lit, as is our custom. May it be a symbol of welcome, its flame a beacon of hope. We have gathered here in this moment for worship. That makes this a holy moment, a sacred moment. So welcome. Welcome. Welcome to our service. No matter how heavy or light your heart is in this moment, please know that you're welcome here, and may you find connection and a sense of belonging during our time together. If you don't normally worship with us, and also welcome to those who are joining us online. I know Eleanor always tells you how many people are in the church. I haven't done a head count. I'm sorry, I can't do that. But welcome anyway. There is a few of us here, despite the marathon and the busyness of town. So if you don't normally worship with us, then I'd like to extend a special welcome. Unitarians have no fixed statement of beliefs or creed to which you have to agree in order to be accepted. Our attitude is that religion is wider than any church or faith group and deeper than any set of beliefs. Here, we practice a free faith, unfettered by dogma. As such, when I speak of God, I invite you to bring your own unfolding personal and intimate understanding to that name, for it's yours and yours alone, and it may just be your most intimate relationship of all. For those who don't know you, my name is Stephen Crowther. I haven't actually led a service here for getting on for a year, so I was a little nervous beforehand, hoping that it was a bit like a bicycle, that, you know, once you've learned to do it, you can do it. And so anyway, I can feel the nerves starting to settle. Now some opening words now from poet Juliet Fehrenbacher. I'm going to be reading 3 of her poems throughout the service. This is the first one. Let's forget the world for a while. Fall back and back into the hush and holy of now. Are you listening? This breath invites you to write the first word of your new story. Your new story begins with this: you matter. You are needed, empty and naked, willing to say yes and yes and yes. Do you see the sun shines day after day, whether you have faith or not? The sparrows continue to sing their song, even when you forget to sing yours. Stop asking, am I good enough? Ask only, am I showing up with love? Life is not a straight line. It's a downpour of gifts. Please hold out your hand. So we're going to sing together now. Hopefully, everybody will join in. We'll sing. We're going to sing the first of our 2 songs. The words for it are on the back page of your service order. Had there been more of us, we might have tried to be a bit ambitious and sung it as a round. But I think what we'll do is maybe to begin with, we'll all sing it in unison, and we'll keep going until it sort of fades, until we run out of energy and steam. Are you all right with that, Michael? Great. If any of you do feel adventurous and are into singing it around, I mean, maybe we could, and let's just see how it goes anyway. Oh, thanks. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of me. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, Thank you. And thank you for being indulgent, Michael. So, tonight's service, when I sent the the promo information or the information to Kat, I included those two quotes. I don't know if you saw it in the email, the quotes, one by Shakespeare, "To thine own self be true," and the other by Popeye, Popeye the Sailor Man. And so the theme, if you like, of the service tonight is about what it might mean to live authentically. And Brené Brown says, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. And now for our first reading, some words from Richard Rohr. Both God's truest identity and our own true self are love. So why isn't it obvious? How do we find what is supposedly already there? Why should we need to awaken our deepest and most profound selves? How do we do it? By praying and meditating? By more silence, solitude, and sacraments? Yes to all of the above, but the most important way is to live and fully acknowledge our present reality. This solution sounds so simple that most of us fabricate all kinds of religious trappings to avoid taking up our own inglorious, mundane, and ever-present cross of the present moment. As James Finley says, the greatest teacher of God's presence in our life is our life. For some reason, it is easier to attend church services than quite simply to reverence the real, the practice of the presence of God, as some saints have called it. Making this commitment doesn't demand a lot of dogmatic wrangling or managerial support, just vigilance, desire, and willingness to begin again and again. Living and accepting our reality will not feel very spiritual. It will feel like we are on the edges rather than dealing with the essence. That's why many run towards more esoteric and dramatic postures instead of bearing the mystery of God's suffering and God's joy inside themselves. But the edges of our lives, fully experienced, suffered, and enjoyed, lead us back to the center and the essence, which is love. We do not find our own center, it finds us. Our own mind will not be able to figure it out. We collapse back into the truth only when we are spiritually naked and free, which is probably not very often. We do not think ourselves into new ways of living. We live ourselves into new ways of thinking. We do not think ourselves into new ways of living. We live ourselves into new ways of thinking. In other words, our journeys around and through our realities lead us to the core reality, where we meet both our truest self and our truest God. We do not really know what it means to be human unless we know God. And in turn, we do not really know God except through our own broken and rejoicing humanity. Those words from Richard Rohr, from one of his recent daily postings. So we're going to sing again. We're going to sing the second hymn, a song which the words are in the middle of they're in the center of the service order. This is Blue Boat Home. The tune will be familiar if maybe the words are not familiar to you. Of course, for anybody who's been to summer school, that will be familiar. So I'd like to begin my reflection with some words from Thomas Merton. And I apologize for the patriarchal language. These words were written at a particular time. A tree gives glory to God by being a tree. For in being what God means it to be, it is obeying him. The more a tree is like itself, the more it is like him. For me, to be a saint means to be myself. Therefore, the problem of sanctity and salvation is, in fact, the problem of finding out who I am and of discovering my true self. Our vocation is not simply to be, but to work together with God in the creation of our own life, our own identity, our own destiny. That quote from Shakespeare that was on the email that says, "To thine own self be true." It was a familiar phrase, I think, to most of us. And the other one is that quite often we go, just be yourself. Just be yourself. Be true to yourself. These are familiar words, and I know there's they're words that I've heard throughout my life, and whenever I hear them, I go, yes, I'd love to be, but I don't know who I am. Who am I? How can I be true to somebody if I don't know who I am? And I have a friend who was plagued by that question. Who am I? Oh, who am I? I don't know who I am. Who am I? And they went to somebody and they spoke to somebody they knew, and they said, oh, I don't know who I am. Who am I? And this person said, you're whoever you are in any given moment. And I thought, oh, that was such a kind of gem of wisdom. I thought, yes. And of course, what's implied in that is, because in that sort of who am I and that need to know who I am and define who I am, there's something about needing to carve it in stone, or so this is something rigid and it will stay like this. And of course, in that response of like, I am whoever I am in any given moment, there's an implication that things are constantly in flux and in movement, and who I am moves and changes, depends on what's happening around. It depends on what's happening around me and inside me. That's why I also included in the email the Popeye quote. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I am what I am, what I am. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. That's all that I am. I think also in that sort of attempt to be who we are, I think we quite often, well, I know for myself certainly, that there's a should, or there's a lot of shoulds that float around in me. I should be like this. I should be like that. I shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't be feeling that. There's another friend of mine says that those shoulds belong to other people. They belong to others. We kind of somehow we take them on somewhere in our lives. I once met somebody years ago. I met somebody, my path crossed with somebody who was wearing a badge that said, "Don't should all over me." And I was like, yes. And I really should start trying to produce those actually. But so the reason why I stopped taking services last summer was because, as many of you know, or some of you know, my husband Charlie was very ill, was unwell, and he was admitted into Stoke Mandeville Hospital. And at the time, the understanding was that he was going in for 12 to 18 months. He was going to be in Stoke Mandeville Hospital. He was very ill, very ill. And And so that was off he went. And at the time I thought, okay, my duty is I go and visit him every weekend. I have to, so I retired and let go of all my weekend work. I let that go. So I wasn't doing any services. He made remarkable recovery. Healing. He healed incredibly well, and it turned out that he was actually going to be discharged sooner rather than later. And so he was actually discharged last week. But when it was obvious that he was going to be discharged, this news was met by my friends and my loved ones as great news. They were really excited. I couldn't share that excitement. I was furious because I'd spent the last kind of 2.5, 3 years coming from the place where we weren't going to be able to reclaim the life that we had claimed before he was hospitalized, because I thought I'd lost. And so I'd done a lot of grieving. And somehow I just couldn't, I couldn't suddenly just change my thinking and, oh, this is great. He's now coming home. We're going to be able to go out for dinner and go to the movies and go to the theatre. Everybody else was so happy, was really pleased. And I felt awful for feeling angry. I felt really bad. And what I kind of learned and what I realized was that I couldn't suppress that anger and say, oh yeah, this is great news. Yeah, no, it was great. And it was great news for him. Because I was angry, because throughout that time, the thing that kept going through my head was what was lost